birds, I'm assuming. Okay, we got through that part. There's still time for the Dharma. So we start each evening of practice here, as probably noticed, with this mysterious sounding robe chant. So I thought maybe we'd explore that a little bit tonight. So special chant for robes. I have heard of Soto Zen being spoken of as a cult of cloth. I thought it was about meditation. A cult of cloth. And I currently am a living testimony for that. I'm wearing all this stuff. Keeps you warm. Can be a challenge to wear. Kind of elegant when it's flowing, right? Maybe the monastics were early in the journey of gender fluidity, and different kinds of clothes and stuff like that. But the important layer from the tradition's point of view is this outer layer, this brown wrap that goes around the outside here. We also have a few priests with the black one. They're both in training right now in their places. So this is called the okesa. Kesa is the Japanese version of a Sanskrit word called kashaya. And the O in front means great. So it's the great robe, the great kashaya. And all ordained clergy in all schools of Buddhism wear some version of this. It's very universal. Different colors, different styles a little bit. Usually draped over one shoulder, leaving the other shoulder bare. And in many traditions, the right shoulder is fully bare. You've seen images of monks in Thailand, or His Holiness Dalai Lama, many Tibetan lineages. I guess the Chinese and the Japanese made more of a concession to winter, so we get to have some cloth on our bare shoulder. The bare shoulder is a symbol of vulnerability. When you go around a Buddha or around a stupa, which represents the Buddha, around an altar, you go around clockwise with your bare shoulder, of course, the sacred object. Be vulnerable, be open. And this robe is a big deal. We've mentioned Dogen regularly, I think, lately, our great 12th century founder who was also a big writer. Wrote large, long, complicated books about Dharma. And one of his longest pieces ever written was about this robe. A piece on the power of the robe. Here's something from near the beginning of that text. A kashaya has been called the garment of emancipation. The hindrances of actions and defilements, and the effects of unwholesome actions are all removed by it. So this is healing, wholesome. It removes hindrances and defilements. If the dragon obtains even a small piece of kashaya, it can be cured of disease. If an ox touches a kashaya with one of its horns, its past wrongdoings will disappear. When Buddhas attain the way, they always wear a kashaya. Know that its power is unsurpassable and most venerable. So given that, it makes sense that we have a little ritual before we put it on. So that's what that chant is about. People who have physical manifestations of the kashaya, which could be the whole thing, bed sheet that Chris and I are wearing. It's really tricky to get tucked in right if you see us fussing with a lot. Like they've been fussing extra more. Like you don't ever get better at it. We also have quite a few of us that have a small version of the kashaya called the rakasu. And there's a few more of them than there used to be in last Sunday's ritual. So everyone with a physical robe puts it on their head and chants that chant that we chanted earlier tonight. And the neat part of this whole process, by the way, is you sew these things by hand, which is his own meditation practice and challenge for light. So this ritual, putting a robe on top of your head and chanting a verse, was something that Dogen was deeply moved by when he went to China, which was an epic journey from Japan as a young man. And he wrote about that experience of first seeing this done with great passion, probably years later. We don't know exactly when he wrote this piece. He writes, "Once I was in Song, China, practicing on a long sitting platform. I observed the monks around me. At the beginning of Zazen in the morning, they would hold up their kashayas, place them on their heads, and chant a verse with palms together. Great is the robe of liberation, the robe beyond form, the field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teachings to awaken countless beings." That's the verse you heard in Chinese. First time I had seen the kashaya held up in this way, I rejoiced, tears wetting the collar of my robe. Although I had read about this verse of veneration for the kashaya in the Agama Sutra, I had never seen the procedure. Now I saw it with my own eyes, and in my joy I also felt sorry that there had been no master to teach this way to me, and no good friend to recommend it in Japan. How sad, so many years wasted. But I also rejoiced in my wholesome actions that allowed me to experience it. If I had stayed in my land, how would I ever have sat side by side with the monks who had received and wear the Buddha robe? My sadness and joy brought endless tears. Then I made a vow to myself. However unsuited I may be, I will become an authentic holder of the Buddha Dharma, receiving authentic transmission of the true Dharma, and with compassion show the Buddha ancestors authentically transmitted Dharma robes to those of my land. I rejoice that the vow I made at that time has not been in vain, and that there have been many bodhisattvas, lay and ordained, just like here, who have received the kashaya in Japan. Those who maintain the kashaya should always venerate it day and night. This brings forth most excellent merit. To see or hear one line of the kashaya verse is not limited to seeing and hearing it as if we were trees and rocks, but pervades the 9 realms of sentient beings. So, big deal. Big deal. So the verse itself is in 4 lines of 5 characters each. And we have it in our chant book on the very first page. And you can look at it during this talk if you like. Make it make more sense. We have it written out in Roman characters, where the sounds of the five Chinese underlying characters are represented. And I'm trying to remember if we have it necessarily in sets of 5, because some characters go together to make a compound into a word. So let's just see if we do. Yeah, pretty much, except for Nirai and Shosho, which we'll get to. Actually, it's a little bit imperfect, but close enough. So, these sounds are not actually the sounds the Chinese would use to pronounce these characters. The underlying Chinese characters, which you don't see on the page, but they're there. And they're also not the sounds that modern Japanese language uses. They're this kind of archaic system. It's kind of like, like Church Latin or something like that. So just to know that when we're chanting Japanese, it's this form of Japanese that was invented early on after the characters were brought in from China, Chinese character sets, ideographs, as a way to pronounce them that was trying to honor their Chinese roots, but doesn't sound like what the Chinese say either, so it's very complicated and interesting. But the reason part of why I bring that up is we're in no worse shape than a modern Japanese person would be. chanting these sounds, because they wouldn't make sense to them either, actually. It's different sounds. In fact, it would almost be more confusing for them, because they would recognize many of the characters, but in their heads, they would be seeing a different sound. It's kind of like we're looking at the alphabet and we see an A, and everyone says B. Okay, I'm supposed to say B, but it says A. Right? So it's called Sino-Japanese, China-Japanese. And it's to honor this ancient tradition. And all the traditional Zen texts are written in Chinese and pronounced in this kind of odd hybrid way, like Japanese ones, which you have to learn. So I'll just say that if you go to Japan one time and you say, I know a little Japanese, and you start chanting this, they're just going to look at you funny. So they won't know what you're saying. It's a funny little part of the Natalie Goldberg essay. You know Natalie Goldberg, the writer, the Zen writer. She somehow never heard this, and she did exactly that with some Japanese friends. She's like, oh, I know some Japanese guys, I get it. You know, what? So, anyway, just kind of interesting. There's so many layers to what we're doing here. And I just enjoy sharing a little bit about them. So the first line is 5 characters. And in our book, the puku should be 1 word. So dai, sai, ge, da, puku. 5 characters. Dai, dai, da, da. I tangle my own head too. Easily tangleable. Dai, sai, ge, da, puku. So dai means great. It's a simple character, just 3 lines. And you hear this all the time. Great this, great that. Dai this, dai that. Dai bosatsu, great Buddha. And sai, the second character, is a modifier like an exclamation mark. So dai sai means how great. Really great. You're the Dogen there. He's crying. Yeah, this is so amazing. So great. And ge and da are 2 characters that go together to make the word for liberation. So how great liberation. How great liberation. And sometimes the individual characters shed more light on the compound. So ge actually means to unravel, and da means to undress. So liberation is an unraveling, an undressing, of becoming more naked. Isn't that beautiful? It's not like getting some new something, like another overlay. We think about learning like an overlay, like more stuff, right? This is subtractive, less stuff. So how great liberation. We're getting naked here. Naked souls, right? That's in our tradition. Naked soul. And puku is clothing, just a regular character for clothing, pronounced in this old-fashioned way. I forget the modern translation. So this first line is pretty clear, and our translation is good. Great robe of liberation. You gotta change the word order and stuff, but great robe of liberation. So that's pretty clear. Great robe of liberation. The second line is where it really gets pretty interesting. And our English translation is a bit creative, or maybe a little bit wrong. Muso fuku denne. So that's written as 4. It should be 5. So mu and so should be 2 separate characters. Muso fuku denne. So mu is the classic word for negation, for no or not. Maybe you've heard the famous story about dogs and Buddha nature, and the teacher says, no! And Zen students are freaking out about this for centuries since. So it's the same mu. And the character is really cool. I restrained myself from doing my whole translation bureau thing tonight, but it looks like a little gate. It's all these cross lines and down lines and little things at the bottom, like little spikes. It's like this gate. Mu. So the first part of the second line is a no. Big no. And so, so, second character in the second line, is the Japanese term for an underlying technical term in Buddhism, which is nimitta in Sanskrit, and it means like the appearance of things. The appearance of things. That Buddhism went to great lengths to try to understand how we perceive and what the nature of reality is, and all this. And there's lots of special words. And this one is like the appearance of things, which may not be the real thing. It's the appearance of things. So this compound means no appearance. So how great the road of liberation, no appearance, so something is going to not appear. And then fuku den, these two characters, fuku and den, go together. Fuku is good fortune or virtue, it's goodness. And den is a farmer's field, a rice paddy. So fuku den is a virtuous field, a beautiful field where things are wondrous, a place, a pure land type place. So there's a non-appearance in a virtuous field. And then the last character there, A is another simple word for clothing. So this is a hard line to translate. Something like non-appearance or fluid appearance or unknowable appearance of the robe in a virtuous field. So we have the field in our English, field far beyond. The sense of beyond kind of goes with this field. But form and emptiness are not actually in the text. So that's very kind of creative before we came up with that. And I think ours is a fairly early English translation. And somebody thought that was cool, and maybe it was Suzuki Roshi himself, I don't know. And we stuck with it. Other Soto lineages have since revised this line, as I'll show you now. But it's interesting, If this robe, which seems like a real thing, I'm wearing one, except maybe you're not, it seems. So I have the appearance of wearing one, and you have the appearance of not wearing one. But the verse says it's a non-appearance. So maybe we're both wearing it, or we're neither wearing it. Maybe wearing it and its appearance isn't that important because we all are within this virtuous field of Buddha land, of Buddha nature. And that's where we wear our robe. That's where our robe is. So where we have field far beyond form and emptiness, another translation which you will hear at a place like Great Vow Zen Monastery, Aiden was just there, is they translate that line as a formless field of benefaction. A formless field of benefaction. So non-appearance kind of does formless, it's still not literal. But a field of benefit, a field of benefaction. I'm not so sure about benefaction. Have you ever used that word in your whole life? Benefaction? Yeah, there's some real benefaction going on here. This is nice. So I don't know, it seems a little archaic. Like some translators are like, it's a holdover from the King James Bible or something like that. That have some D's and I's and benefactions. So, but also both of those are missing the word robe, which is in there. So there's something about this robe that takes us beyond in some way. And it's really good. It's really beneficial. But it's not limited to what we can see or not see or think or not think. So that's a tricky little pivot. The third line, Yibo Nyorai Kyo. Nyorai is a compound into two characters, so Yibo Nyorai Kyo. So E, the H is not really words. E is interesting. It's an everyday word in Chinese for wearing, but it's the everyday word in Japanese for opening or unfolding. So you can kind of put them together. This thing gets all folded up, folds up in a little stack, and then you unfold it. You unfold it and you wear it. So something here about unfolding something, like unfolding our lives maybe. We all kind of unfold, the unfolding of life. So E is to wear and unfold. Bu is nice. It means humble, thankful, and respectful. So we're really grateful that we get to do this. That we get to unfold the robe, that we get to unfold our life, that we get to practice. It fills us with joy. We get to do this in a wonderful field of Nyorai is a term for Buddha, and it's another where the two characters do have meaning, and together it has a combined, deeper meaning. Nyo and Rai mean coming and going, coming and going. And the one that comes and goes, and sometimes it's the one that thus comes, is the Buddha. This is a translation of the Sanskrit term Tathagata. So we're dead on in our translation here. Tathagata and Nyorai are the same, and they both mean Buddha. So it refers to total freedom, right? To really living within the truth that everything's rising and passing away, everything's rising and passing away, simultaneously at every moment. And we feel, as sentient beings, confused human beings, we feel much more rigid and stuck than that, right? Like we recognize that we're changing, but, not that much. Kind of in fits and spurts too, right? And sometimes we're upset by changes because we haven't noticed they were happening all along, and suddenly it's good enough that we notice. Things break, relationships, cause, and things grow and change. And sometimes people grow apart, right? That's really difficult. So the Buddhas are much more fluid about all this. They're just coming and going, arising and passing away in every moment. They're not holding on to their identity. So it's our holding on to identity that kind of freezes our Nyorai. Freezes our coming and going. Is that a great word? And Kyo is the word for sutras. Everyday word for sutras. And you'll hear Kyo at the end of the Japanese titles for the sutras. Ime, Juku, Kanai, Kyo is slightly different, but it's never more Kyo. So this line's pretty clear. Gratefully wearing, right? Gratefully unfolding Buddhist teachings. But wearing the robe, which is to say practicing the way, is unfolding the Buddhist teachings. And we're so grateful that can happen. That's possible. So we have wearing the Tathagata's teachings, and Great Vow and others have wrapping ourselves in Buddhist teachings, which is kind of sweet, wrapping yourself up, but it's comforting. We're wrapping ourselves in Buddhist teachings, we're wearing the Buddhist teachings. And the last line is also kind of interesting. Ko do sho shu jo. So kodo. Ko is broad and spacious. And do is like occurrences, things happening, things arising, things occurring. So kodo is something like everywhere occurring. So something's kind of happening everywhere all the time. Kodo is kodo. And the third character, sho, adds even more emphasis. That means all, many or all. So something important here is about all the time, many, all, a multitude of things. So what is it that's many and all and always happening that we should pay attention to as we wear the robe? Well, it's shoshu. No, sorry, it's shujo. Shujo. So our English is a little bit off here. Shujo. And shujo are living beings. So this last line is saying we're immersed in living beings everywhere. We're living beings. We're trying to help living beings. We're trying to be with living beings. And we do that with the robe of benefaction in the field, with no fixed appearance, right? With gratitude. How great is this as Buddha? Interestingly, this whole line, Kodo Shoshu Jo, is the phrase for saving all beings. Is the phrase for saving all beings. But the word save is not in there, actually. And we have saving all beings, whereas Great Vow and their friends have we free all living beings. So I think it's just so deeply implied that once we notice, we're paying attention, we notice the suffering beings all around us, we don't need to go add a bunch of verbs, We just show up. We respond. We free, we save, we help, we are with, and probably for us it's a little bit, words like save and free are a little bit loaded, right? Because then we get kind of, something. We think we're like the ones that get it, and we're going to save those other ones that don't. So that's problematic. So it's immersing ourselves in all beings. And saving all beings is saving ourselves, because we too are beings, right? We too are beings. So that's what we chant when we start our practice. It's a crazy thing to chant, like all the Buddhist chants are, Fast, lofty, practically unattainable. It's a vow, right? It's taking a vow. Great robe of liberation, field far beyond form and emptiness, wearing the Tathagata's teachings, saving all beings. We're saying that we're doing this. We're not saying, this would be a good idea sometime, after I graduate, maybe. When I retire. Once I learn how to do it. No, it's right now. And here's the other version together. How great the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction, wrapping ourselves in Buddhist teachings, and free all living beings. So where does this leave you if you apparently don't have these special cloth objects, okesas and rakusus? Well, there's a lot of ways we could look at this. And I always seem to think of three ways of looking at traditional teachings. So I'll bring them up in case they seem useful to you. The first is kind of straight up intellectual and historical. Where did this come from? It's interesting. This is a human cultural tradition that came from somewhere, was continued by many, many people down to us today. Somehow this system and this sort of cultural practice of wearing these special clothing has made it to Bellingham, Washington in the 21st century. How'd that happen? That's why. And it's sort of axiomatically there must be something to it. Doesn't mean just because something's still around doesn't mean it's necessarily good, but there's something to it, right? There's something powerful, something important, something that will last from one human to another for thousands of years. And here it is here. There's something to be known here intellectually. So we're not like anti-intellect in the Zen world. It's just it's not enough. So a second aspect might be called devotional. Turning up our trust, or even the word faith might be allowed. Turning that up to 11. If there's something important that I can feel, maybe I don't have words for it. You feel something when you chant this stuff, right? Whether you know what it means or not. And there you kind of do. And whether you wear a robe that you can see, whether it's mu appearance, non-appearance, appearance not. Whether you wear a robe that you can see made out of fabric, or maybe your robe isn't quite so visible in that way. Maybe it's the robe of your whole life's journey, wrapping you and helping you. It's the robe that you have sewn, stitch by stitch, experience by experience, trouble by trouble, falling down and getting up, for all the years of your living and all the lifetimes before that. You've been sewing your own robe. So this aspect is to really invite yourself to feel into that. Knowing that Buddha's robe is wrapping around you as you chant, as you walk, as you sit, as you go to work. Maybe you're wearing a piece of particular kind of cloth or not. Or maybe not a robe, but other words are good. You can pretty much substitute love for the robe. Let's see how ours would sound if it was love. Great love of liberation. That's the field far beyond form and emptiness. Love is wearing the Tathagata's teachings is love. It's the involvement of love. Or maybe it's spirit, Mother Earth, or God? What are you wrapped in? How are you clothed in this life? And how are you clothed when you're naked? When you're liberated? So there's kind of a devotional aspect to this stuff. And, believe in it or don't believe in it. And maybe believing or not believing is besides the point in this praying. And the third way of looking at all this is just practice, We do a practice when they clunk the bell and we do a chant, We are doing a practice and we're doing it together. And of course, all these things are totally interpenetrated. We bring our intellectual brain to everything we do, There's no off switch, as you've noticed. Sometimes the volume may turn down a little bit. That's nice. And this devotional feeling and this sense of practice, of doing something. And maybe doing something a little different than some of the ways that we are, that don't help us as much. So we chant, we listen, we feel the resonance in our bodies of these particular sounds. They're not just any old sounds, right? They're particular sounds in the tradition. Whether they translate themselves in English words in our head or not, and whether the English translation we have is even accurate, it doesn't matter. That we sit down together as one body, with one voice, and we pay our respects. We chant about our love of Buddha's robe, and that Buddha's robe is our love, no matter what it looks like from the outside. And the great thing about practice is it reminds us that it's not only here, it's not only these particular cultural things, just with a chant or something. But we can practice like this all the time. Nothing's stopping us except our habits and distractions, which are strong, Okay. We can always be learning Buddhist teachings, expressing Buddhist teachings, being and saving all beings. We're always in the formless field of benefaction and peace and love. So, I want to share a little bit about the robe chant. That's interesting and helpful. And of course, it's on each of us to do what study you want to do, and we can suggest some of the sources. It's just kind of mind merging together different things. Maybe you would have a different conclusion as you study these characters, these texts. Let me just close with a little more from Dogen's enthusiastic long essay about the robe. At one point he quotes Buddha from some obscure source, talking to a bodhisattva about the robe. Buddha says to this bodhisattva, "Listen well. Listen to the 10 benefits of the robe, the great field of merit. Worldly clothing only increases the stain of desire, but the Dharma garment of the Tathagata is not like that. The Dharma garment prevents embarrassment in the world." You'll never be embarrassed with this. And with clarity, precepts, and healthy regret perfected, wearing the robe yields a field of merit. You're free from cold and heat. You're safe from poisonous snakes. The mind of the way becomes firm and gains the ultimate. Display the renunciate, free from desires. Wearing the robe cuts away the 5 use and promotes right practice. Gazing upon and bowing to the Kashaya, the jeweled banner. Those who venerate it are blessed with the birth. Blessed with birth by King Brahma. So enthusiasm. So any questions, thoughts, comments about all this? one thing I do always worry about, I have someone who just sitting with me, like I do every year. You don't have to do this stuff. It's completely optional. And it's a discernment you can do with yourself and your teachers, you know, your friends, your Dharma friends. It can be a helpful kind of process to sew this stuff and wear it and do all the ritual stuff, but it can also be a barrier. It can also be a problem. And it can be a big problem in our community if we think somehow that people with more special stuff are more special. Probably the opposite. People who have enough problems that they have to get these extra supports or something like that. Anyway, so not to feel like you're somehow less than if you don't go through these little procedures. And we're all practicing and we're all learning rules for anyway. That's why I really think that. So it's funny that you don't say that. It's a little potential problem. Possibility for suffering